When it comes to general movie-going audiences, everybody knows who Iron Man is. Everybody knows who Captain America is. Even if you weren't big into the Marvel comics before Thor came out, odds were everybody pretty much knew who he was, the same way everybody knew who Hercules was. Everybody knows who the Hulk is as well. So when all of these movies came out over the last few years, everybody was pretty much on board with knowing who the characters were beforehand. But once Marvel announced its plans for its Phase 2 films, the films to come out through 2014, again, it was the same kind of stuff where everybody knew Captain America for Captain America 2, Iron Man for Iron Man 3, and Thor for Thor 2. But there was one movie in the pot that everybody suddenly had questions about. That movie is Guardians of the Galaxy. And everybody immediately started wondering, who are the Guardians of the Galaxy? So herein is going to be a comprehensive guide to all the characters and members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now to start off with, there's actually two teams of Guardians of the Galaxy in Marvel Comics. The original team that debuted back in 1969 is not the team that the upcoming movie is going to be about. But to understand the entirety of the Guardians of the Galaxy mythos, kind of need to start off with them since they were the progenitors of the team name. So in 1969, the group started out, and it was actually set in the future. The original Guardians of the Galaxy team took place in the 31st century, so they rarely interacted with the more notable comic characters like Captain America or Hulk or Iron Man, but they did a couple times because they went back in time. But for the most part, it was set in the 31st century. And in that time, humanity was kind of on the run from a group of alien invaders known as the Badoon, and they became the consummate villains who the Guardians of the Galaxy were always fighting against. And also at that time in the 31st century, mankind had spread out to all the other planets in the solar system and had genetically engineered itself so that people living on those planets would have physical attributes to allow them to survive it. So, most of the characters from the team didn't actually have a wide array of superhuman powers or anything. They were just kind of genetically engineered to withstand the planets they were living on. So you had Charlie 27, who's this big hulking brute of a character, and he was genetically engineered to be that big and tough because he lived on Jupiter, which had a much higher gravity, and so he needed to be stronger and bulkier just to move and operate machines in that part of the universe. You had Nikki, who came from Mercury. Mercury, the closest planet to the sun, very hot, so her body is very resistant to fire, so much so that her head is constantly on fire and her hair is made up of fire. And she has some fire-based abilities as well. You have Martin X, who lived on Pluto. And farthest from the sun, tends to be very cold there, so his entire body is kind of crystalline in structure. He looks like he's made out of crystals, and he has heat-generating abilities and cold-generating abilities. Now, the leader of the team was a guy from the present day, from 20th century Earth, named Vance Astro. Took on the name Major Victory. He went through a time warp and got sucked into the 31st century, fell in with the group, and became their leader because he was a great strategist. Rounding out the cast of the team, you have Starhawk, who was kind of a regular human before he got imbued with superhuman powers, energy manipulation, flight, strength, and vulnerability. And the only member of the team who actually was not a human is Yondu. And he's a Centurion from Alpha Centauri. Actually, Centauri 4 was the planet he was from. And he's from a tribe of people who kind of reject technology, so that's why he was often always using a bow and arrow in the original comic. And he is apparently actually going to be in the upcoming movie played by Michael Rooker. So that was the original team in 1969, and they were the team to originally have the name. But in 2008... a new Guardians of the Galaxy came about in the comic universe, brought on by writers Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. They had just completed a crossover event featuring all the kind of cosmic Marvel characters like Silver Surfer and Galactus and Nova and Annihilus and just all the cosmic characters of the Marvel universe, brought them all together for one major crossover, and out of the ashes, sort of all of those events, a bunch of those characters decided to come together and form a team, and that is going to be the makeup of the upcoming 2014 movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, the team has actually consisted of several people throughout the original 25-issue run of that comic, but the ones that we know specifically are going to be in the movie, thanks to casting that's already been done and concept art that has been released, are Starlord, Drax, Gamora, Rocket Raccoon, and Groot. So to tell you a little bit more about these specific characters before we get into the extended members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord's real name is Peter Quill. Now, he's half human and half Spartoi, an alien race known as the Spartoi. And luckily, the Spartoi look exactly like humans. For all intents and purposes, they are humans in every sense. They just come from another planet, have much more advanced technology. Now, Peter's mother was human, and his father crashed on Earth. She took care of him, nursed him back to health, and after they fell in love and spent some time together, he had to leave the planet. So she got pregnant, had Peter, and he was raised never knowing about his half-Spartoi heritage. He grew up and eventually became a NASA pilot. And one day, he and his NASA crew were approached by an alien known as the Master of the Sun. And he was looking for a candidate to take on the mantle of Starlord, kind of become a space cop who would go around the universe fighting crime and righting wrongs. And actually, Peter wasn't chosen by him. He wanted to be, but the Master of the Sun selected somebody else. But Peter wanted it so bad, he kind of shoved the other guy out of the way and jumped into the teleport beam and took on all the power and abilities himself, which mostly just consisted of technology and ability to control the specific technology that belonged to Starlord. So since he kind of jumped in and took it over himself, the Master of the Sun didn't really have any other choice but to let him be Starlord. And what he basically did was he had some advanced technology. He had a ship that could think and talk to him and took him all around the galaxy and acted as his partner as he was trying to fight crime. And he never really had a lot of skill, a lot of strength or power or anything, but he managed to right some wrongs and solve some crimes until he came face to face with a former Herald of Galactus. Now, the Heralds of Galactus are like Silver Surfer used to be a Herald of Galactus, Firelord, Terrax the Tamer, all these really powerful cosmic beings that Galactus would give some of his power to, and then he'd send them out to find planets for him to consume. So Star-Lord came face to face with this former Herald of Galactus known as the Fallen One, who was just far too powerful for Star-Lord to overcome. And the only way Star-Lord could beat him was by using his ship to absorb the life force of a nearby planet, basically steal all the life of all the people living on this nearby planet and turn that into one focused attack, and he used it to knock out the Fallen One and stop him. But of course that meant killing everyone on the planet, and it also destroyed his ship as well. So he was left with kind of no ship and this massive amount of guilt about all these people that he had just killed. And because he had killed all those people in his fight against the Fallen One, he himself got arrested by the Nova Corps and sentenced to an intergalactic prison known as the Klin. And eventually this is where the Annihilation crossover that Abnett and Lanning wrote started off, so that's how he kind of fell into all the action of the Annihilation crossover. And eventually he becomes the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy because despite the fact that he has no real abilities, superhuman powers of his own, he is a very good strategist and a very good commander. So he's the only one who's really good at formulating plans really well, so he takes over as the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Another character we know is going to be in the movie is Drax the Destroyer. And even though he doesn't look it, Drax started out as a human. He originally was named Arthur Douglas. And he was just kind of a regular guy. He had a wife and a child. And one day, Thanos, the big purple guy at the end of Avengers, who everybody's been wondering about and wanting to see more of, well, he was coming to Earth, and he was trying to be sneaky and stealthy, But the Douglas family saw his ship coming down. So, in an attempt to conceal himself, Thanos attacked them and ended up killing Arthur and his wife. His daughter, Heather Douglas, was very young at the time. Thanos decided to adopt her and raise her as his own. So, Arthur Douglas and his wife were effectively dead. But he was resurrected from the dead by Thanos' father. Thanos' father wanted to create a warrior who would be able to challenge Thanos in combat, so he captured the soul of Arthur Douglas before it went off to the afterlife and put it into this body of this green, powerful warrior named Drax the Destroyer. And ever since then, ever since his resurrection as Drax, he has been consumed with this desire to find and kill Thanos. It's his life's mission. Now, he's gone through some changes over the years. When he originally started out, he kind of looked like the Hulk with a big purple cape. But he's gone through some deaths and resurrections over the years, and now he kind of looks like a green-skinned Kratos from the God of War video games. But now he's very strong, he's got martial arts abilities, he's a very capable fighter, and he was actually able to kill Thanos at the end of the Annihilation crossover. So he's a member of the team as well. Another member we know of is Gamora. Gamora also has ties to Thanos, much like Drax does. Gamora is the last surviving member of her race, and Thanos adopted her when she was very young, raised her, kind of like a daughter, but trained her entire life, taught her martial arts and assassin techniques, and also gave her bionic implants, mechanical implants to make her stronger, faster, and a better killer. So she's been trained her entire life to be a killer, and she's kind of known as the deadliest woman in the universe. So she also has a history with Thanos, and when she grew up, she kind of became aware of who Thanos was, how bad he was, and she eventually grew to hate him. So she also has a desire to kill Thanos, much the way Drax does. The two wildcard characters that everybody's been wondering about are kind of two fan favorites from the original comic. Fans of the comics really love these two characters so much so that they got their own spin-off limited series, and that's Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Rocket Raccoon is a bipedal, anthropomorphized raccoon, and he's the one character that everybody's really on edge about because they think he's going to be like kind of a Disney-esque character, like he's just thrown in there to get kids to come. But if you know anything about the character, that doesn't fit him at all. He's a foul-mouthed, gun-wielding, kind of a smart-ass character. Now, his background is he comes from a place called the Keystone Quadrant. And the aliens who ruled the Keystone Quadrant had a planet. The entire planet was just going to be a place for mentally ill people. It was a mentally ill institution, and they needed an entire staff that could, populate the entire planet to take care of the mentally ill people there. And so they genetically engineered these half-human, half-animal creatures using DNA from Earth. And their thinking being that they would have these creatures who had human intelligence and human personalities, but they looked kind of cute and cuddly so that they could be better accepted by the mentally ill people populating this planet. So even though he kind of looks cute and cuddly, he has a human intellect and personality. So he happens to be kind of foul-mouthed and a wise-ass kind of a character. And he's always seen with a big gun. He loves being a gun-wielding, shooting, marksman kind of a character. So he's always packing heat, and he's always making a smart-ass comment, and that's the kind of character Rocket Raccoon is. Groot is a living tree. He claims to be the last surviving member of his race, but we find out in the Rocket Raccoon and Groot limited series that there actually are a bunch more of his species. They just don't leave the planet that he's from. He's from a planet that's just known as Planet X. Now, Groot is fairly giant in size. He's 10, 15 feet tall or so. Super strength. He has a really nice ability that comes in handy quite often. If he is destroyed if you can collect just a single twig from his body and plant it, an entire new Groot will grow from that. So he's been destroyed a few times in the comics, but they always just collect a little clipping of him, plant it in a pot, and eventually a new Groot grows out of it. So he kind of works as the big-time muscle of the team. You know, a big walking tree, very powerful, obviously. So those are the main 5 characters that we absolutely know are going to be in the movie. But there have been a lot of other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And a notable one that they got the actual name from is Major Victory. If you remember what I said about the 1969 team, the leader of that team was Major Victory. What happens is, in the first issue of Guardians of the Galaxy, they find him suspended in ice, because apparently he got frozen in ice and came back through time. So he came back through time to present day, and he joins the group, and he suggests that they use the name Guardians of the Galaxy because that was the team he originally came from. In addition to that, other notable members have been Phyla Vell, the daughter of Captain Marvel, who has energy manipulation powers, flight, super strength, force fields. There's been Bug, the martial artist, wisecracking, Click-Clack warrior from the Microverse. Mantis, who is psychic and has some precognitive abilities to tell the future, and she's actually a former Avenger. Though she doesn't look it, she used to be human as well, and she used to be an actual Avengers member. There's Moondragon, who is Drax's daughter. Heather Douglas, who was raised by Thanos, eventually became a superhero herself, known as Moondragon. She developed psychic abilities, mind-reading abilities, all the kind of stuff that Professor X could always do. She can do all of that stuff, and she also happens to be Phyla Vell's lover. There's Jack Flag, who was a one-time partner of Captain America. He got sentenced to a interdimensional prison during the Civil War storyline, where all the superheroes on Earth were given a choice of either signing up with the government or going to jail. He decided not to sign up with the government. They sent him to jail in the negative zone, and eventually the Guardians of the Galaxy had a run-in with all the criminals in the negative zone. Jack Flag was there, so he joined the team. And the one more most notable member of the Guardians of the Galaxy is a character called Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is potentially the most powerful member of the group. He's sort of a cosmic sorcerer. He's been a big player in the Marvel cosmic line for many years, and he's most notably been the nemesis of Thanos. Every time Thanos cooks up a really powerful scheme, Adam Warlock is usually the guy who beats him. He has magic abilities, energy manipulation abilities, flight, super strength, and a super intellect. Now, there's been a lot of speculation on whether or not we'll see Adam Warlock in the movie, and a lot of people think we will. Some people think maybe they'll save him for a potential sequel, but he always was a very critical part of the Guardians of the Galaxy team, so it's a very strong possibility that he may make a surprise appearance in the movie. Now, some of the villains that the Guardians of the Galaxy fought over the years, they fought a group called the Universal Church of Truth, who were a galaxy-spanning cult who worshipped a very evil character known as the Magus. The Magus is very notable for being a split personality of Adam Warlock's. Adam Warlock is the good version, and sometimes he would go evil, he would become the Magus. And the Magus is the deity, kind of the Jesus for this church, the Universal Church of Truth. They've also had run-ins with Fantastic Four villains like Blastar and Annihilus. They've had run-ins with the Phalanx, who were a X-Men enemy. They've had run-ins with the Badoon, who were the original 1969 team's primary adversaries. And of course, they fought Thanos himself. And there's been a lot of speculation that there's going to be a lot more information and possibly an appearance by Thanos in this movie that's going to come out in 2014. And considering the fact that at least 2 of the characters that are going to be in this movie, Drax and Gamora, have a big-time history and a big-time hatred for Thanos, it's a strong possibility that he may be in the movie as well. So that's the rundown on all of the characters we know are going to be in the movie, as well as all the remaining characters who have made up the team in the comics. We don't know which of those other characters might make an appearance in the movie, and which ones won't. So hopefully now you know a little bit more about the team that is going to be in this 2014 movie, the last movie that's going to be coming out before Avengers 2. And now you've got the scoop on the Guardians of the Galaxy.